Hi, and welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. Again, today I have my co host, Janet Miller. Hey, Janet.
Hey, Billy. I've got some fun questions for you today.
Okay, so today's question day, huh?
Today is Ask Billy. I polled some friends and some students and just said, hey, what would you like to know? And here are some of the questions that I got. And the first one brings us to some of our past topics that we've just been talking about hormones. And so the first question I got was, how do I know if I need hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah, well, I would say that in today's world, Janet, symptoms, are certainly going to be the first thing that we look at. And I would probably a decade ago, I would have said any woman over 40 would probably need hormones. Now I'm going to revise that to any woman over 30 or 35. And we've talked about some of those reasons in the last podcast, but just the environment, the things that are around, the plastics, the chemicals, the glyphosates. There's just so many different, the atrazines, chemicals in our world today. The Wi-Fi's are everywhere. The lack of sleep, the processed foods. So I think the first thing is, do you feel like you feel your best? Do you feel like you perform your best? Are you gaining any weight? Do you find it hard to lose weight? Do you feel like you've lost strength? Have you lost your zeal for life? Have you lost your sex drive down? There's so many different symptoms we could think of. Are you having hot flashes? Are you, do you just feel like you're just lethargic? There's
no
so
sex drive.
Things. Yeah.
I would say go back and listen to our previous 3 podcasts because Billy goes into detail about each of all the different hormones and why and the building blocks to those hormones.
But I would say also, Janet, as a follow-up, any woman of any age, including young women in their teens, it could be having symptoms of hormone imbalances. And we often see that, especially with PCOS and with all these irregular periods, where they're bleeding too much, too little. There's all kinds of things, acne. There's all kind of reasons that a woman may want to have her hormone levels checked and do a consultation with somebody like myself or with a provider who really understands it. Yes.
Cool. Well, all right. So I'm going to move on to the next one.
All right.
And this comes into our kitchens and eating out. So first of all, what oils should I cook with and what oils should I avoid? Because you're hearing about seed oils all the time, or if you come to my house, you see we don't cook with anything but butter or beef tallow. What do you think?
Well, the first thing that I think people should avoid, and I'll put this above sugar, so that's how important I think it is seed oils. And that would be, soybean oil, canola oil are probably the 2 most prominent. Peanut oil,
vegetable oil,
any vegetable oil, Crisco, safflower,
rapeseed.
Yeah, well, rapeseed is canola. Yeah. So let's put it this way: any oil in the grocery store, okay, except for butter, beef tallow,
coconut,
pork lard, coconut, which is a solid, right? Coconut oil is a solid. It's not a liquid at room temperature. You have to heat it to make it a liquid. I would not advise cooking with olive oil because olive oil is not stable when it's heated to high temperatures, and it has the properties then of a seed oil.
But it's wonderful to use olive oil when you don't heat it up.
Correct. It's great for drizzles or really light sauteing, but we don't want to heat olive oil. Now, a great oil to cook with if you don't want to use butter, lard, or tallow or coconut oil is a high heat avocado oil, like what Primal Kitchen makes or has available. Those are the things. I would tell you that the most important thing to avoid, again, above sugar, is seed oils.
Okay.
And so they create massive amounts of inflammation. They actually change the composition of our fat cells, make it very hard for our body to burn that fat off. And the unfortunate part is, Janet, they're everywhere. They're subsidized by our government. They're promoted by the American Heart Association, American Medical Association, American Diabetes Association.
So I think even at Whole Foods, they say if you're eating on the bar,
It's going to be
at the
canola
food bar,
oil.
there's going to be seed
canola oil.
oils. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard to avoid it if you're going out to eat.
Well, it's because of misinformation campaign that started way back in the 50s and 60s, Ansel Keys, the 7-country study. I mean, it's a long story, but yeah, it's just know that seed oils are very, very damaging to our health.
And butter tastes so much better.
And not only does butter, tallow, and lard taste better, but they're much healthier for us.
Well, and they make us satiated, quicker, right?
Correct. And our body knows how to burn that
Yeah.
fat off.
Yeah. It's a good fat.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move to the next one. You're going to love this one. Which fast food restaurant is healthiest?
Yeah, well, of course, we would try to avoid all fast food restaurants. Now, they're all going to be cooking with seed oils for sure. I would say even almost all high-end restaurants are cooking with seed oils because they're cheap, because they're subsidized by our government. But one of the things that you've heard me talk about many times in our class is really something that I think Garrett started saying, hey, this is a good answer to this question. And that is that like you could go to Five Guys and get a burger on a lettuce wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not perfect, okay, but it is a burger, which they probably didn't put any oil down because the meat has fat in it naturally, right? So they didn't
Getting
need to
your
use an
protein.
oil. You're getting a protein, and you're not eating a gluten-filled, carb-stacked bun.
Made out of 55 or more ingredients.
You're right, with all the seed oils and all the genetically modified wheat and, all that stuff in it. So and you could do that literally at any fast food place, get it and throw the bun away or ask for a lettuce wrap. But Five Guys would probably be a decent spot. Another really decent spot is a Chipotle.
Yeah.
They, you can get like a burrito bowl. They use hormone antibiotic free chicken and beef
I
today.
love Chipotle. Yeah.
I actually just learned, and I can't think of his name right now, but the owner and the founder of Chipotle actually graduated from the Culinary Institutes of America, or Culinary Institute of America, in New York. So he is a very highly trained, that's like the by far number one culinary school in the world. And he was trained there, and he said that part of his training and the reason that he has brought the quality of food that he has to Chipotle is because of his training there and what he learned and about sustainability and using animals that hadn't been fed hormones and antibiotics. So very interesting hearing his story. So
and how they started out. And I remember going to one of their first restaurants, and it was very different, and everything was locally sourced at the time. I'm sure it's maybe not anymore, but
probably not locally, but they're still trying to get quality meats. They're making fresh guacamole and avocado and those kind of things on a daily basis. So I think Chipotle would be a really good choice.
There's a new one, and I'll find the name and we'll talk about it next time. But we were in Austin, went to a fast food restaurant because we heard that they switched to all 100% grass-fed beef.
Awesome.
And everything organic. And it's a little bit more expensive, but they gave you so much food. And I found out they're opening one in Charlotte, and they're putting them all over the country. But when they switched to 100% grass-fed beef, their stock tripled the next day. So
people are becoming more savvy to it. And Janet, you say in Austin, you're talking Austin, Texas. Yeah. So there are pockets of the country, and when I've traveled, teaching these classes and things, teaching my weekend, Beth and I have found places where it's just common.
Yeah.
You walk in almost anywhere and they have grass-fed beef, or they have, those kind of things. And so there are pockets in our country, definitely, where there are places. I can think of some places we've been in Colorado, where it was that way, South Dakota, Wyoming. They seem to be more out that way, Texas.
They're coming to Cleveland County.
But they're coming this way, yeah. So that's good. That's good.
Okay. Let's see. Next question. This is a favorite and probably the most asked question.
Okay.
Which alcoholic beverage is healthiest?
Yeah, well, Janet, I'm always going to tell people that alcohol's a poison. I go through the reasons why, how it damages the liver, how it destroys sleep.
It turns to poison in your body.
It is poison. It is a poison to our body. So I would encourage people to consider not drinking any alcohol. And if that's not the case, you can't do it or not going to do it. I don't say anybody can't do it. If you're not going to commit to that, that's fine. You're the CEO. You decide what you want to do. Certainly the most women are asking me about wine most typically. So I'm going to go there.
Okay.
I would say that we want to avoid any American-made wines.
All the Napa wines have glyphosates.
Yeah, they're sprayed with glyphosates. They have much higher sugar content than European wines, which are not allowed to have the glyphosate
it's illegal.
sprayed.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you will find, and I talk to people commonly who, when they go to Europe, they drink and they drink some wine and they don't have the side effects, the negative effects that they typically have when they're drinking wine here.
Which is like the hangover or the face turning bright red.
And a lot of it is because they don't have the chemicals. They don't have as much sugar. I just think the quality, the nitrates and nitrites, the quality of the way they do it is different. And that's no different than their coffee. The coffee is the same in Europe. It's and when I say the same,
it's
as
got
the
mold
wine,
here, right?
It's moldy here. It's not moldy there because they don't allow it. So I think just finding a higher quality wine from Europe would be a better choice for sure.
And if you're going to drink liquor, tequila.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm
you're gonna say no.
Try to avoid all of it, but you could probably make the case that something like tequila or vodka could be healthier than, say, a beer.
As long as you don't mix it with sugar.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you mix it with Coke or some kind of soft drink, that probably changes the game. But I mean,
you can tell you don't drink because you don't mix tequila with Coke. But
well, okay, yeah. See, again, I have no clue.
One of the things that I learned in your class that I love, and it took a while to sink in, was that I wanted to burn fat. And you read a study that showed after drinking alcohol, and maybe it was particularly for women, that for 5 to 7 days, your body could not burn fat. I think it could burn muscle and other things, but it really was resistant to burning fat in the liver.
Yeah.
And I wanted to burn fat, and I didn't want to wait 5 to 7 days every time I had a few drinks to burn fat.
Well, I point that study out because some people say, well, only drink on Saturday night or Friday night.
Yeah, but then you don't burn fat for a week.
If you're one of the people that it takes 7 days, well, there you go, before your body can really efficiently burn fat again. So, again, I you know this, Janet. I teach everybody, you make your own decisions. I'm going to tell them all they're better off not to drink any of that. If they look at this, just the studies on how it destroys your sleep are enough to understand, and sleep is one of the 5 pillars. Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. Thank you. All right, let's move on to another question. So we're hearing all the time that women need more protein. We're trying to get more protein into our diet. And I'm personally trying to get about 130 grams a day. So I got this question. What type of protein powder should I use? And what they see a lot are vegan protein powders, plant-based protein powders, soy isolates. It's confusing.
Yeah.
And so what's the best protein powder? I take your protein powder.
Yeah, well, I think there's an easy answer.
And I love yours because I only need to mix it with water. I don't need to put a bunch of oat milk and stuff like that in there.
Right. Well, I think it's a really good question, but I think there's an easy answer. When I'm talking and teaching about protein, and not only do women in America need more protein, men in America need more protein. We're very protein deficient. And protein makes up every cell in our body. Okay, it's a component of every cell in our body. But when I'm talking about protein, I'm referring to a complete protein. Now, I know this is going to be controversial, but vegan protein is not a complete protein. We need the essential amino acids. That means that our body cannot make these 11 amino acids. Okay, we can't produce them. We have to take them in. That is found in animal protein. Those are found in animal protein. So I would say that I believe that the OptiU whey protein, chocolate or vanilla, sourced from New Zealand, grass-fed, grass-finished, no hormones, no antibiotics, no genetically modified ingredients, never heated, hydrolyzed protein is the best protein on the market. There's no added sugars. It mixes very easily. You can mix it in water. You can mix it in some type of milk. You can mix it so many different ways. But it is a complete protein. I'm not a fan of isolates. I want the concentrate. I want all the amino acids there.
Yep. What's the difference between an isolate and a concentrate?
Well, an isolate would mean that we've isolated certain amino acids out of it.
Okay.
That's not the way we would find it when we would eat a piece of meat. That's not the way we would find it if we ate chicken, fish. We would find the concentrate. So that's what we concentrate on, for lack of a better term, in our product, is giving you the complete amino acid profile so that our body can utilize that just like it would for any other food, a full, complete steak, burger, chicken, fish.
So whey concentrate would be the answer to that one.
I think it is, but here's the problem, Janet. Most proteins on the market are, number one, full of other junk. You mentioned
sugar and soy.
Women everybody should avoid all soy products because soy can, and we'll go back to the hormones. Yeah. Soy alters the hormones. Okay. It is a hormone mimicker. It destroys the hormone levels in women. It can lead to more breast cancers if it's the wrong kind of soy.
It messes up that symphony in our body.
Now I should point out that my OptiU whey protein has soy lecithin in it. That is fermented Japanese soy. It is not what I'm talking about here. And it's less than 1% of the entire container, but that's why it mixes so smoothly.
Okay.
But it's a healthy soy. So fermented soy is different than non-fermented, genetically modified soy. But finding that, good luck. Okay. I mean, I don't, I don't know of a product that has it outside of ours. But long story short, we need complete proteins, and it needs to be animal to be a complete protein.
Okay. I do love your protein powder. And I think it's cheaper than what I was getting a pharmaceutical brand online.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm going to a restaurant, what's the best thing to order to kind of stay in a lane where I'm trying to be healthy? Because I know almost every nice restaurant you go to, the first thing they're going to do is bring you bread.
Yeah.
And then, you're looking at the menu and everything's got lots of starches. Like, what do you order? Or how do you manipulate that menu?
Jan, I think this is easy. I mean, again, we would try to avoid the bread. And the best way to avoid the bread is just tell them, I don't want it. I
tell them to bring the butter, and I literally sit there and eat the butter without the bread.
Much better choice. Bring me the butter, leave the bread off. You'll get looked at funny, and they'll say some funny things to you, but that's okay. Just choose a good quality protein, number one. Like you can find a steak or a burger or a piece of fish or a piece of chicken, right?
Well, talk about fish for a second and mercury, and how do you know?
Well, yeah, I would. And now on the fish, I would always inquire, is it wild caught? Yeah. I think we should never eat farm raised fish because it's fed soy and canola and antibiotics and hormones. So we would want wild caught fish or some type of, again, chicken or steak. But we can certainly do that with a veggie, even if you're a sweet potato or broccoli, asparagus. Most restaurants, you can find that kind of combination where you're thinking more of a non-starchy vegetable and a good quality protein, and just try to avoid the pitfalls of the breads.
I think if you are going to eat the bread, eat it at the end of the meal.
Maybe
you're not hungry, and by then you've got more protein in you, and so it's not going to spike your blood sugar as much.
Yeah, you would be much better to eat that piece of bread with your steak or your burger or your chicken or your fish than before.
Same goes with the chips when you go to eat Mexican food and they bring you the whole basket of chips. Don't eat them until after the meal.
Just maybe kind of manipulate when you do it and minimize how much of it you do, and we can minimize the negative effects of it. Okay. For sure.
And then what oils are those chips cooked in? That's a whole nother podcast.
Well, look, now one thing we should point out, at any restaurant, almost any restaurant, they're cooking with seed oils. You just got to live with that. Yeah. You just got to know, hey, I'm not going to do it at home, but when I'm out, that's where we're going to be.
And what I've learned to do is I take my digestive enzymes everywhere I go. And so we always, especially at a restaurant, will take our digestive enzymes and we pass them around and give one to everybody, because just
Yep.
helps with digesting that stuff. Okay. Another big question here. This is on another topic, but when I go to my doctor for my annual and I want to get my blood labs done, what labs do I need and what levels do they need to be? And maybe that's a whole podcast, but what would be
That's
your
probably
answer?
a whole podcast, but let's start with what levels. So the number one test, you already know what I'm going to say.
Fasting insulin.
Fasting insulin. They're not going to want to do it.
They're
I
not,
go ahead and tell you.
they might not even know what it is what
They
I'm
may
hearing.
not know what it is. They're going to push back. There's no class of drugs that lowers it, so they don't want to measure it. They hadn't been taught about it. I think the most important blood marker that anybody can get is a fasting insulin. Unfortunately, again, it's typically not done, and a lot of providers just will not do it. It's
And
not expensive.
what's a good fasting insulin level?
We really want it to be 4 or below.
Low, right?
Now, normal will be in most labs up to 26 or 27, and they'll say you're, quote, normal, and that'll mean you're fat, diabetic, overweight, waiting to have a heart attack, stroke,
Type 2
cancer,
diabetes.
blood clot. Type 2 diabetes. So we want people to be 4 or below on a fasting insulin. That would mean, when I say fasting, they've only had water the previous 10 to 12 hours before the blood's drawn. So number one, I always want a fasting insulin. The number two thing that I think about, and again, often not done, blows my mind, vitamin D. D is in dog. What is my vitamin D level? We want an optimal, not a normal level.
Over 60,
We want, well, I like
over
closer
70.
to 80,
Okay.
but 60 to 80 minimum. If I had heart disease or risk of cancers, I would probably be between 80 and 100. I keep mine above 90.
So what vitamin D supplement would you take and why?
Well, I always take, again, the Prescriptions Plus, my formula, vitamin D with Super K.
With K, because it helps it
It's the
absorb.
right kind of K, and it keeps, let's say my vitamin D level got to 120, which I'm not trying to do, but let's say it did.
Mm-hmm.
The theory would be that it could create a calcium imbalance. Well, when you have the right vitamin K with it, you will not get that calcium imbalance, because the K acts as a method of putting the vitamin D back into the bones and the calcium back into the bones instead of into the bloodstream.
And I know that when you're
So-
taking vitamin D, you want to take it with food.
You do. You need food with vitamin D because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. So what I always recommend is people take vitamin D with their evening meal. If you look at some research, it's better absorbed in the evening with a meal.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
Yeah, great point.
And so with blood work, I know I always ask for D. I always ask for fasting insulin. I get them to do my hormones, my thyroid.
Well, speaking of thyroid, though, they're going to do a TSH, a thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a whole nother podcast, but we'll hit on the blood panel. You need a free FREE T3 and a free T4, not just a TSH. And let's don't get into why. We can do that on a different podcast, one of our hormone continuations.
So I know that you have a recommended.
They need an
list.
A1C, Janet. They need their hemoglobin A1C, which is their 90 to 120 day blood sugar average. And we want that to be below 5.0. And the reason is, when your A1C is below 5.0 as a man or a woman at any age, your risk of death from all causes plummets.
Wow.
And that means that our insulin and our sugar are under really good control. We're living an insulin-controlled life, which is what the whole OptiU plan is based on, right?
And you need
It's
to not
controlling
just know
sugar and
A1C, but you got to know the fasting insulin too.
Well, yeah, you need to put the fasting insulin with it, because the A1C number can stay low for decades if you look at the studies, while the insulin has
Fasting insulin is
skyrocketed
high, right.
because the body is trying to compensate. And we go through, again, that's a different podcast. But
Good to know.
so those are really important. So I think that, people should know their free and total testosterone. This is men and women. They should know their estradiol. They should know their DHEAS or DHEA sulfate level. They should know their progesterone level.
Yep.
Yeah, Janet, I think it's good for them to know, but I'm not a huge lipids fan. I'm not a huge cholesterol number fan. I do like for them to know their triglycerides, and I do like for them to know their HDL. I could care less what their total cholesterol is.
So
and
we'll
they
do a whole
should care
podcast
less.
on that
That's
one.
again a different podcast. But they do need to know what their triglycerides and what their HDL are, because those again would indicate how's my insulin and how's my A1C, how's my sugar doing.
All right. So, and they could also ask us for your list of.
Yeah, I think, Janet, some other really important ones that are not typically going to be measured and that the doctor may fight them on is a homocysteine number.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important inflammatory marker for heart disease, especially for Alzheimer's disease, for those types of things. Easily corrected by taking the right multivitamin, the OptiU multivitamin, the OptiU methylated B complex.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about that, because the other question was, what are the best supplements, and how do I know if I'm getting a good supplement? And I order these, pharmaceutical grade supplements, but how do I know what's in
Well,
it?
let's go back to the blood work, and
Okay.
then we'll come to that.
Okay.
So homocysteine is a very important inflammatory marker that's typically not looked at. But the beauty of knowing what your homocysteine level is we can just easily correct it if it's
Okay.
abnormally high. We want it to be between like 6 and 8. I prefer below 8, but the levels on the blood panels are typically much higher, but we don't want to be there. We want to be optimal. The other inflammatory marker that I love to see people measure is high sensitivity C-reactive protein, or HSCRP, because that's an inflammatory marker of the vascular system. And inflammation is a key component of heart attacks and strokes and blood clots. And so if we know our HSCRP, ideally we want it to be below 1.0.
Okay.
The lower the better. That would mean that our vascular system has very little inflammation in it. And if we look at, one of the leading causes or contributors to the heart attacks is, and the number one cause of death is heart disease, right? In America, men and women after menopause, is inflammation. So it's very important to know these numbers. They're just typically not looked at, again, because there's not a class of drugs to lower homocysteine. There's not really a class of drugs to lower HSCRP. There's not a class of drugs to lower insulin. So we just don't measure it, typically in the typical blood panel. So I think all those are really some of the key ones that we could look at. And then to the next question about supplements, well, the problem with most supplements is most on the market, up to 80%, if you look at the studies, don't contain any of the active ingredients listed on the label.
That's crazy.
Now, that is crazy when you think about it. And in that study, they went on to say that over 95% of supplements had toxic ingredients in them.
So they're doing you more harm than good.
In most cases, I would say people are doing more harm than good. And more importantly, they're spending their hard-earned money on things that don't work and may be harmful.
Have the most expensive urine around.
Yeah, so we need supplements that are the highest quality, professionally formulated, okay? Because there's so many supplements on the market today that are what I call full of just window dressing. So they have maybe they are pharmaceutical grade, but they have this big list of nutrients, vitamins and minerals that are in it, but they're such small amounts and in the wrong forms that it doesn't matter.
So
that could be pharmaceutical grade.
So we're not absorbing it.
Well, not only that, Janet, but let's say that we have an inactive form of B12 or an inactive form of B6 or something like that, or an inactive form of folate.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies have to convert. They have to work to convert that to an active form. So now you need factors and cofactors that are typically not found in that supplement, that now you can create a deficiency from your so-called pharmaceutical grade vitamin, right?
Because your body's working too hard.
And we know that in the most recent studies, up to 65% of people in America have a methylation pathway defect, okay? That means that they can't convert folic acid into folate. They can't convert cyanocobalamin and hydroxy or methylcobalamin.
B12,
So what those things really are is toxic. You are building up cyanide from cyanocobalamin if you're one of those 65%. You're building up folic acid, which it can be toxic if you're not able to convert it to folate, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. So what a professionally formulated supplement like what I do, in the OptiU and Prescriptions Plus supplements, we're only using the most active forms in the highest quality source from the right places so that your body never has to work. Your body never has to use another factor or cofactor. Your body doesn't have to use energy to try to convert this poison
Wow.
into something that your body can use. We're giving you the good stuff. We're giving you the high test gas, right? Like back in the old days. We're giving you energy to your cells, energy to your body, energy to your brain with no toxic effects, with no side effects, with no chemicals or additives or colors. You know, so many supplements have colors added to them. Why do we need a color? Why do we need red dye 40 or yellow dye in our supplements that are linked to things like prostate cancer and ADD and bladder cancer? And why would a company do that? It's mind-blowing to me.
Because it's saving them money.
We want pharmaceutical grade, professionally formulated, NSF certified, CGMP or current good manufacturing practice supplements only. Very few companies in the world do that.
I love taking your supplements because I know I can trust everything that's in them.
100%.
I know you're giving them to all your kids and to yourself
100%.
and to your wife.
Not only that, but to our grandkids.
And to the grandkids.
So Beth and I
babies.
make sure, and my son and his wife, Garrett and Bailey, make sure that the Poppy and Jesse twins, who just turned 1, they've been on these supplements since the day they were born. Okay.
Wow.
And Bailey was on them long before she got pregnant.
Yeah.
So these things are important from before they're created in the womb to after they're born. So yeah, I would not ever give me or my family, and certainly those developing children, anything outside of the best. And that's all I'm going to deal with is the best quality, the best supplements, the best sourced, the best products put together, period.
B12. I love your B12 under the tongue
Yep.
drops. What's the difference in going to my doctor and getting a B12 shot and getting that, or is it the same
Well,
thing?
99% of the time, you're going to get a cyanocobalamin shot.
and
If you're
yours
one
is
of
a
the
methyl.
65% that can't convert, you can't methylate,
Right.
you're building up cyanide, you're not doing
Right.
anything
Right.
except harming yourselves. Methylcobalamin is the product you're talking about, or hydroxycobalamin, I have both, are the active forms. And so your body doesn't have to convert. Your body doesn't have to do anything.
It's easily absorbed.
It's
that way.
easily absorbed under the tongue. I don't think that the shots are actually necessary.
I've been
in
reading
most
where you
cases.
actually get more from sublingual.
If
than
you
do
look
from
at the
shot.
studies on our product, you actually can raise the level more than you do with the injection. So we never, ever want to use cyanocobalamin. And even worse than taking it in a tablet or capsule form is injecting cyanocobalamin. If you want what the studies show and what my advice is, do not do that.
Okay. The last question would be, and we've talked about this before also, but it's confusing. I'm on the road, I'm traveling, I've got to run into the store, and what kind of water do I get?
Yeah, Janet.
Or what kind of soft drink is best?
I don't have a great answer for that question, unfortunately. And I get it. Look, when you're traveling, you got to do what you got to do. There is not a really great answer. And I say that only because I've tested every water on the market that I know
It's
of.
fantastic to watch you test soft drinks and water, by the way, if nobody's ever seen you do that.
I would always defer to the water above the soft drinks, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But what I have been recommending to people, there is a water, if you can find it, called Essentia.
It's high alkaline, right?
Essentia. It is an alkaline water, and I have tested it, and it is a higher pH water. It is, however, not an antioxidant like the Kangen water that we talk about from the medical device from Japan. It is not microclustered, but again, when you're traveling and you're out, it is a better choice. Absolutely. So Essentia water, any water is better than any soft drink I can think of.
And maybe anything that's not in plastic.
But yeah, in a BPA-free plastic bottle,
plastic.
which I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Essentia says that it is in BPA-free plastic, and it does test alkaline. Those are going to be, that's the top choice. If you can't find that, just look for an alkaline water in a non-BPA or in a BPA-free bottle, a non-BPA containing bottle. The Dasanis, the Aquafinas, the Fijis, the Smart Waters, they test very bad. It's not the ideal choice, but again, it's still better than a Coke or a Sundrop. If you want my personal advice, I want to avoid those at all costs. So when we're out and we're out eating, though, Janet, or we're out and we're traveling, or we're in another place or another country, I tell everybody, make the best choice you can, enjoy it, come back home and get back on the plan. You don't have to. So many people get so caught up in, oh, I can't do this. It's not that we have to be perfect. I'm not perfect at it. You're not perfect at it. But what I am is I'm consistently good at it, which means that if I do eat the piece of pie or do eat the ice cream or do eat the cake, I'm just going to get right back on the plan. So it's not if you do drink the glass of wine or you do drink the alcoholic beverage, just get back on the plan. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Right. That's beating yourself up is worse than.
None of us are perfect. Yeah. Our goal is to strive to be better. And that's all you can do. You got to make the best of where you are. You got to make the best of the situation. If you have to eat fast food, make the best choice you can. If you have to buy water.
After a while, when you've been eating right, and you go to eat something that's not so good for you, your body reacts.
It will.
And you won't feel as well. And you're like, I don't want to make that choice next time.
Absolutely.
And I have a sweet tooth. So I've kind of learned what I can get away with and what I can still eat that's sweet. Yeah. And mostly in the form of high-grade, high-quality protein bars that taste good.
And remember, Janet, if we can take care of our bodies with the right supplements, with the right water, with the right foods, with the right exercise, with the right sleep, with balanced hormones, it gives us, and we're building muscle and we're leading this life most of the time, it gives us more leadway, quite honestly. I hate to bring that up, but it does give you more leadway to be able to make more of those kind of decisions or be out more and do those things because your body is more resilient and will bounce back quicker. So, but people don't need to beat themselves up. Just because you mess up doesn't mean you can't get right back where you were going.
Yeah.
Just if the horse throws you off, get back on, right? I mean, kind of
that's
thing.
Just a treadmill that we get into. We beat ourselves up, especially women, I think.
Yeah. And what will happen is if you'll start to lead this life and see how you feel, and you're right, your body will react when you put the wrong things in, you'll just get better and better at this. And it'll become easier and easier. And then it'll be your default and you won't even think of doing it different.
Yeah. It's been an incredible year of doing that and just getting right back on track. And I think that was the main thing for me this past year, was not beating myself up, moving on, and just doing the best that I could.
And that's what everybody needs to learn. Look, give themselves grace, give themselves mercy. Mm-hmm. Be the CEO, though. You are ultimately in charge of your health. It's not your genetics. It's your epigenetics. What do you put in, on, and around your bodies? Yep. So have that mindset and stick to it.
High five.
All right. Thank you, Janet.
Thanks.
I'll see you next week.
All right. Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.